Welcome, everyone. Welcome to those who are here in person. Welcome to those who are watching the recording. We're going to start with a little introduction about what this is all about. We're then going to go into the archetypal foundations of healthy relationships and specifically the Eve archetype. And then we're going to look at what this is like in practice. And then, of course, for those who are here in person, we're going to go into the very details of your relational blueprint. And that's going to be something that I'm extremely excited to share because it's the kind of thing that we now have enough wisdom to offer to individuals by the time they're in their early 20s, if not earlier. This is a kind of blueprint that you can have for the entirety of your life. It's not going to change. By the time you're in your mid 20s, it's already crystallized. And our work here is to provide an extremely crystal clear map of that blueprint, which is going to tell you what's going to come down the line for you relationally, primarily in your intimate and romantic relationships, but to be honest, also most of your other relationships. Once you have that, it changes the game of your relational life, period. You literally see what's coming down the line. You know how to posture it. You know how to respond to it. You know everything that you have to do to, at the very least, keep not only your side of the street clean, right? But also to model to those who are with you how to develop anything that has potential into a relational engagement that is generative, that is healthy, that is empowerment. And, last but not least, in a way that minimizes heartbreak, that minimizes the suffering of broken attachments that the world is, still in the midst of. Something that I know many of you are aware I'm deeply embedded in, deeply passionate about. It's archetypal patterns, archetypal norms. And I think we're going back to that in culture slowly. This idea that there are certain ways that things happen and they can't really deviate if they're going to happen properly. How to have a baby. There's a certain archetypal process to having a baby, to the gestational process. There are certain norms that process has to stand within for it to go well. And if it deviates from those norms, things don't necessarily go well. It can still take place, but there's an absolute golden line that needs to happen for a baby to be born, for an acorn to turn into an oak, to bake a good cake, to, to create a good pasta carbonara, whatever it is. These are archetypal norms. And while they do have some wiggle room and there are certain elements and principles can be bent, they can't be broken. If they are broken, that weaves into the system and then creates distortion that eventually leads towards rupture, breakdown, right? The non-generative outcomes. And so everything I'm going to share with you today is squarely within the archetypal norms that you yourself can embody, can model, that is going to give you the far and away greatest potential for the most generative, healthy, growth-oriented healing relationships. Period. Done. And where it begins, I'm pleased to say, is, well, in many of our myths and greatest stories, but probably the most iconic is Adam and Eve and Genesis. There are others, but that for me is probably one of the most crystallized and most exceptional. And what's most important about this is it's not just a theoretical story I'm going to give you. The theoretical model of Genesis is perfectly played out in the clinical container the clinical therapeutic container, the therapeutic relationship, but I can also, from experience, say that it is completely reflected in the intimate romantic relationship. So what I'm giving you here is really a blueprint of what we're going to be going into in practical terms, right? But it's important to have that blueprint for many reasons. I think it connects to the unconscious here. So this is not just a story. This is the actual blueprint that we're all attempting to align to. And I'll give it to you fairly briefly. So, Adam and Eve. With all due respect to the Christian church and to any Catholics who might be watching, the interpretation, the standard modern Christian interpretation to the Adam and Eve story is a little bit divergent from the archetypal interpretation that I hold near and dear to my heart. The tree of good and evil was the awakening of self-awareness. This is the foundation of relationships. This is why every relationship we get into is a mirror. We connect with someone else relationally to say, I'm willing for you to be my mirror. I'm willing to see things that I haven't seen before. I'm willing to wake up to the good and evil within myself. That self-awareness awakening process, right? The snake that quote unquote tempted Eve into eating of the apple was not the devil by any means. The snake, as a pre-Christian notion, as a pre-Christian phenomenon, was the awakening process. The snake is the ultimate archetypal and original symbol of death and rebirth. But death and rebirth in a psychological sense, in an emotional sense, in a spiritual sense, right? The ultimate death and rebirth that we go through, all of us together over the course of our lifetime, is when we see parts of ourselves that we don't like, that we can't stand, that are disturbing to us. And we consume that, and it changes us. It transforms us. If you show me, or I should say, when those I have worked with, whether my wife or my teachers or my mentors, when they have shown me parts of myself that I have not wanted to see, and I have kept my eyes pried open, a death and rebirth process takes place, right? You cannot see your own shadow over and over again and not die and be reborn to a greater, more healed, more empowered you. That's the invitation of the snake. The snake actually is geometrically, you could even say cosmically, is the torus. It's the toroidal dynamical motion of going inside of yourself and then going outside of yourself and going inside and going outside. I've done a presentation on this in great detail online, which is the esoteric meaning of the caduceus. If anyone wants to have an even greater elaboration on that, please go and watch it. It's so important. But this is what the relational engagement is all about. The snake is the invitation to go into yourself and see what you have not seen. Why the snake was brought to Eve first is incredibly important. And it has nothing to do with gender. It never did, but it certainly doesn't now anymore. Eve is the feminine principle. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you're non-binary. Some of us are more aligned to the feminine principle. Some of us are more aligned to the masculine principle. Some are hermaphroditic in the fact that we're balancing both. But fundamentally, the principle within the couple and within us that attunes, that is sensitive to the snake, to the invitation to die and be reborn, to spirit, we could say, that brings the snake to us in the form of the unconscious, in the form of the shadow that rises up. The part of us that is most attuned to that is the feminine, archetypally. Why? Because the feminine is the most sensitive. It's the most empathic. So once again, it doesn't matter whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you're non-binary in some other sense. If you are feminine or the feminine within you. That is the part of us phenomenologically that is closest to the unconscious. It's not the masculine. The masculine's on the other side of the feminine. The masculine wraps around the feminine, protects it. All right. That's what we say. Women and children off first. Put the mask on the child first. The feminine is the one within us that needs to be protected most. Within the couple, the one that needs to be protected most. This is not a patriarchal thing. It is ontological. That's what it really is. Right. So Eve was a representation of the feminine that feels these elements, that is invited into the death and rebirth process first. It's the yin within you. It's the yin within the couple. And their journey is to take that power and speak that truth. The yang always comes second. The masculine always comes second. The masculine is the one that protects. It's the one that is less sensitive. It's the one that's out there, so to speak, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, that is out there fighting, that is out there protecting. The only way the masculine connects to the unconscious, connects to spirit, agrees, is inspired to go on that journey of death and rebirth, is they are invited with sweetness, the sweetness of the apple. Right? And I say that not just kind of poetically, mythopoetically. I say that very pragmatically. Having worked with so many men and women over the years, so many couples over the years. And yes, it's probably an 80-20 split. 80% out there of the couples that I've certainly worked with, the feminine have been women. 20% the feminine have been men. And there's always a block with the woman trying to get the man on board to the journey, to the process, to the healing, to the attunement. And in 20% of the cases, it's the man. And every single case that I've worked on, it's because they haven't been able to sweeten their apple, to sweeten that process. Either they don't say enough, or they're too rough and they say too much, right? Either they become a doormat, or they become a nagging fishwife. And we are going to identify every single one of your patterns, every single one of your elements within this, so that once again, by the time we're done, you're going to know exactly where you stand and exactly where you have to posture yourself, which is your growth edge. And that's going to change everything. It's going to absolutely change everything. And by the end of today, we are going to design your apple, which in the therapeutic sense, I just call it's called the intervention, right? It's the part of the feminine that reaches into the masculine and touches that place that says, do you want to go on this journey with me? We're going to be covering all of that. When you deliver the apple well, that's where the alchemical shift happens. And it's something we have to learn. It's a process. And you will have your own barriers to it, because you will have potentially an inner child that goes against all of this because they have a primitive defense from their original attachment wounding from childhood. That has to be addressed too. Those two elements we will completely address. I will give you the draft of like, this is how the game is played. And I really see that in relationships. It's like a tennis game. And most people don't know how to play tennis. They're throwing their rackets. They're serving right next to the net. They're not putting their feet in the right way. They're arguing and not agreeing about when the ball is out or not. Like that is a decent analogy, which I will keep recurring back to. Most people in relationships are not actually agreeing and then honoring the rules of the relational game. They're not. Every single couple I've come into, within seconds, I'm like, hold on, you were out. You did this, you did that. From the get-go, within seconds, we have to correct things. And I'll get into the reason why, but I'll maybe say just for a second why that's so important. The ground rules for all of this is that you have to be as impeccable as possible. Game playing is out. It's over. It's done. This idea that like, well, he called me after a day, so I might wait for 2 days to call him back. That's over. That is so over. And I'll tell you exactly why. If you start to play any game whatsoever other than consistent, reciprocal, honest, respectful, taking accountability where necessary, if you're not modeling all of that, two things happen very specifically. One, you actually muddy the waters of what's taking place so that you can't see when he or the other begins to deviate from healthy, secure norms. Because if you're waiting a couple of days and then he waits a couple of days and then suddenly he doesn't get back to you and then suddenly da 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 da, like you've created the precedent. How are you supposed to know when he's deviating outside of that golden funnel of the healthy relationship? You don't know because you're doing it too. So it all becomes a mosh pit. The only way you can see when it actually becomes, when he's out of line or they are out of line, is if you are modeling it perfectly. And then you can see. Secondly, of course, and it ties in, it's exactly the same thing. It's, you're enabling it to happen. You're encouraging it to happen. So last little piece about that, which we will get into. There are going to be unconscious ways in which you do this. And that's going to be part of our process to model. I love the fact that you said just a moment ago, this idea of feeling disdain right off the bat, kind of already assuming that something's going to happen, right? So that will create certain behavioral adaptations from the past that you want to be completely aware of, prepared for, depending on where we are in the relationship, like vocalizing these certain things, holding yourself accountable. Because the more the yin, the Eve, right? The Eve principle, as the more attuned, the more sensitive, she or they or he has to be the one that acknowledges all of this from the get-go and models it so that every time you're holding the other accountable in the most loving way possible, they can see, oh, wait, you did it first. You're going first. You're connecting to the unconscious first. You're embracing and integrating the shadow first. You're walking that toroidal serpentine path inside and out first. You're eating the apple first. So then when you give it to them, they're more inspired to do it. And I'm going to give you guys a handout, by the way. Like, you know me, I like to be very lyrical. I like to give you the kind of the transmission. But there's a handout I'm going to share with you at the end of this. And it's going to be very specific. I'm going to like usher you through this process with, you know, if Christina, if you're in a relationship now with someone, we're going to take time and we're going to talk about exactly where you are in that. Because there's a funnel, right? It's, I mean, it's like a sales funnel. It's not a sales funnel, right? It's like a funnel to consummation. I mean, there's, you know, base one, base two, consummation, long-term commitment, right? Like that's a funnel. And you have to get through that. And you know, one thing that I'm so passionate about these days, because this is something I've, you know, I've witnessed so long, is I'm absolutely fed up, especially for women, who go down the funnel without the safeguards and get deep into it, and then it breaks. And you have this huge heartbreak. I'm fed up with it. I can't stand that anymore. We don't need to do that anymore. Like, we don't need to do that anymore. My goal is that all of you are going to understand all of this at the end of it. It's going to be just absolutely crystal clear. And once it's crystal clear, I see it as, it's like these relational experiences will be like pitches on a baseball field, and you will know what's coming. It's just that simple. You'll see it coming a mile off. That's what I want for you, because then suddenly it becomes a real psycho-spiritual practice. Even more than that, it's a practice for life. It's a practice for empowerment and healing. You just see them coming. You're like, oh, here's my mom. Here's my dad. Here's that wound. Okay. And you know exactly how you have to posture yourself to work with it. That changes everything. Then it really becomes exciting and not mysterious or re-traumatizing. You just know it. So that's my commitment, all of you. I would like to propose And we will find out, as we get more into the weeds of this, where all of you are with specific relationships and where the apple is being invited to be delivered by you, where the intervention is being invited. And we're going to set you up with that intervention, with that apple in the way that's absolutely right for you. And I'm going to invite you to kind of like get ready to actually deliver it. And if we want to meet at another time when you're on the edge of delivering it, I'm happy to do that. Or if you deliver it and you want to have feedback on that, we can circle back again. Because I want each and every one of you to have delivered an apple successfully to some degree. Because once you do that, it's going to change everything. It's like, I want to take you over that edge. I don't want to just leave you with the theoretics and the to-do list. I want to know that there's an edge and I want to take you over that. Okay. And of course, it'll be done in your way. I'm going to give you the draft, but then you have to make it your own. So it's going to be very exciting, hopefully. If you, I mean, just from what you've said, the burden of raising myself.
Yeah.
What that means is that part of your hero's journey, part of what is going to be in the ingredients of the apple that you deliver is, it's your turn now to hold me. It's your turn now to be there for me. So what I want to do is I want to give you guys the roadmap now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a funnel. It has a million different superficial variations, right? And that's why I've been so excited to share this, because it took me a really long time to see the underlying archetypal funnel of the relational arc from the first date to the long-term commitment. It took me a long time to see that archetype. It's like if you're looking around at flowers, see all these different colors of flowers. Like it takes a long time to realize that it comes from a pollen and the bee and the stem and the stamen and then suddenly the birth. You know what I mean? It takes a long time to see that underlying dynamical process. And so I want to give you what I've seen. Okay. And I'm going to share this with you in a document. So you're welcome to take notes. You're welcome to let it wash over you. But then you're going to see it in a document. And then I want you to map this onto the relationship that you're going to be working with through this training. And then, once again, there will be a moment where you are invited to deliver the apple. And of course, there's not one moment where we're invited to deliver the apple. It's an ongoing process. We're eating apples the whole way through the relationship. It doesn't stop. We just get better and better at delivering and eating. Delivering is holding accountability, offering reflection. Eating is taking accountability, digesting reflection, digesting shadow, and in turn, dying and be reborn, right? That's the transformational relationship. That's what a relationship is all about. It's about becoming more whole. So the first thing you have to do is identify whether you're a little more yin or a little more yang. Now, no matter how hermaphroditic you may be, and I'm pretty hermaphroditic, we will usually have in relationship aspects of us that are more yin or are more yang, right? Simple way of putting it is like, when you're in conflict, do you say too little or do you say too much?
Too little.
Are you a little hard or are you a little too soft? I don't say that in a provocative way. I mean it sincerely. Like, is your energy excessively yang or is it excessively yin? You will notice that in conflict. These are the aspects of your psyche that are looking to be strengthened, right? There's a great phrase from the Tao Te Ching. If I can recall it, it's something along the lines of, the Tao is all about, it's like a bow. The width becomes narrower and the length is extended. It's the stringing of a bow. It's very poetic. And it just shows that from the most ancient of times, like, even Lao Tzu fully understood that we were on a journey of mediating our excessive yang, upgrading our recessive yin, and vice versa. Right. So the first most important thing is for you just to kind of just recognize that your psyche has a shape. And part of it is excessively overdeveloped as a result of trauma, and part of it is excessively underdeveloped as a result of trauma. That's what you look like. And you're walking around looking for someone who is a little bit the opposite. That's your complementary opposite. And they will trigger those wounds. And every single wound, every single conflict you get into is a healing and empowerment opportunity. I cannot state this enough. This is one of the most important elements of this, right? Every single conflict you get into, every single time you are triggered. And just to be clear, once again, you are not just looking for your complementary opposite. You are looking for the individual who will trigger your wounds. So part of your work over these next couple of weeks until we meet again is to, and I'm happy to make myself available for a quick call. That's how much I want you guys to get this down pat, is where are you excessively yin? Where are you excessively yang? Where is your wound? So, for example, we already have one wound that sounds a little bit like there's an expectation of being let down. There's an expectation of having to do all the work. Great. So what's likely to happen is you're going to have someone who your psyche is going to call someone in who's going to trigger that. You're going to have someone who is open to you doing all the work and maybe a little bit on the back foot about it. That's what your psyche would call in for the purpose of saying what you could not say as a child, for the purpose of activating and ushering them through and saying, hey, this is your moment now of delivering that apple. And we're going to get into the weeds of it. Because the devil is in the details, but we need you to really see just the overarching pattern. The person who, in terms of feeling disappointed, you're going to call someone perhaps in, and we'll get into the details, who is inevitably going to disappoint you and who's going to activate that wound where suddenly they are the abandoning father or they are the mother that didn't show up or whatever it was. That's the right partner. That's the right partner, as long as we can usher them through the process consciously. As long as we know at the very beginning, hey, this is a tennis game. We're both trying to up each other's game. If we don't have the tennis game down, if we don't have the rules down, it's just a re-traumatization. It's a trauma bond and re-entanglement. Everything has to be upfront, and everything can be upfront. So part one is your psyche is misshapen, like all of ours, right? It's lopsided. So just see the yin yang in your mind. It's lopsided, and you are looking for that complementary opposite. When they meet you, all your traumas are going to be periodically re-triggered. If you know this up front, if you state this up front, if you state that's the journey that we're going to go on, you suddenly have established the rules of the game. You can reference them throughout. And we're going to once again get into more details around that. But your job is to really identify, and we're going to go through this, every single unconscious traumatic adaptation you're going to bring to this relationship, and to be aware of it and to be willing to be called out on it. Supportively, right? Called out not to be shamed, but to be say, oh, this thing might be happening. You bring them. I used to call this giving them the keys of the kingdom. You have to give the other the keys of the kingdom so that you have permission to address their keys, right? The yin always goes first. The woman or the feminine always goes first. You have to model everything. This is one thing. This is what I said in the landing page was so funny for me, because it was like, how many women have I worked with over the years that in the beginning stages, they say to me, why do I have to do his work? I've done all my work. Why am I spent all this time pulling my pants up, and I have to pull his pants up. I'll be like, yeah, you do. And I do think that is kind of the end game of feminism. It's like, women wanted power. Well, with power comes responsibility. Sorry. And you guys definitely bear the lion's share of the psycho-emotional and spiritual responsibility. Like, look at any yoga class, right? Look at this class, right? It's like majority women. So you do have to take that responsibility on. But I'm going to definitely get to that point where it's like, you don't just do it forever. You offer them a crossroads. And we're going to get to that. That's the apple. Is that one thing that I've been, particularly, troubled by and, heartbroken by over the years, to see how many women who, get into relationships and enter into the romantic and intimate sphere of the relationship before establishing any of this. That's the kiss of death. It's the absolute kiss of death. Um, and for, those of you who are kind of in a relationship, I'm not casting aspersions. I just want to say, like, as you develop into it, you want to be really careful, because to the unconscious, if we are engaging in romantic, intimate situations prior to successfully going through these Adam and Eve, Apple delivering and consuming rites of passage, what you're telling the unconscious is, here's the cake and the champagne at the foot of the mountain. So we're going to celebrate at the foot of the mountain. That's actually to infantilize the partner. It's to infantilize the man. Say, you don't need to get to the pinnacle. You don't need to do the work to celebrate. We're just going to celebrate. There's no work. There's no accomplishment. There's no hero's journey. That's being a mother giving her breast, right? Because the only time when everything has been perfect for us and we haven't had to do anything is when you're in the pleroma, is the technical term. It's where it's kind of paradise on earth, when we were breastfeeding. And there are many women, but also many men, who are stuck in the pleroma. They just want to be fed. They just want to be supported, all their needs taken care of without doing any work. Right? There's an epidemic of it. And yes, there's a lot of reasons for that. Trauma can do that. Culture is terrible. Like, there's war everywhere. People are dissociating. And when many of us dissociate, certainly when many men dissociate, women the same, you go into the devouring feminine. Devouring feminine is excessive porn, excessive doom scrolling, excessive drinking. That's another nipple right there, right? Drug taking. All of these things is part of the pathological pleroma. It's where we go back to that. So be very wary of giving of yourself as a woman to a man prior to going through successfully these stages that we're going to go into in detail. Because you don't want to give him the cake and the champagne and the medal at the foot of the mountain. It's totally topsy-turvy. You've got to say to him, the cake and the medal and all the rest of it, it's at the foot of, or it's at least at like stage 1, then stage 2, then stage 3. Even just in an acknowledgement, you could have an acknowledgement of something. And once again, I'm going to walk you through every single stage of this, but I'm giving you the broad strokes for now. That's the orientation we want. You don't have dessert at the beginning of the meal. You have it at the end, right? And once again, you're inspiring the hero's journey in the individual, in the man, when that is the order, when you are holding to that order. One of the most important parts about this training is setting you up in a situation where, if things are going to go wrong or go south, if the relationship is going to work, you are able to fail quick and fail cheap, as the entrepreneurs say. Fail quick and fail cheap. You don't have to go in and have like an enormous heartbreak, having gone through something tremendously deep, but having never brought the apple or having skirted around it. We don't want you skirting around it. We want you bringing it fairly early on. And from the micro reactions that the individual, the man or whoever it is, gives you, they will tell you whether they're going to make that journey or not. They will tell you whether they are ready and capable of climbing the mountain or not. And also, the posture in which you are delivering that to them is inspiring. It's not like you're dangling your own body at the end of at the top of the mountain. That's not what it's about. It's an archetypal thing of like, if you want to go on this journey with me, it would be wonderful. And if you don't, that's okay too. But we're not going to explore dessert if you're not, because it's not a good opening condition. The initial conditions don't look good, right? They're telling you they may not make it. And so you want to be very careful. And so you're protecting yourself when you get those signals, instead of giving everything, going into everything. You've got it. I actually don't see it. It's across the board. It's across the board. I see it in the gym. Those of you who've been in my trainings, I joke about the gym. Like, say again, Marianne?
It's any kind of relationship. It doesn't matter age, gender.
The closer you get to someone, the more all this activates. Done. So with acquaintances, it's a very long process. If you see someone once every 6 months, it'll take 10 years to go through this. But
Yeah.
if you're meeting with someone intimately, it's going to be there on the second date.
Mhm, mhm.
Because the minute you get close, if you get close to someone, that's not by happenstance. It's not because the business looks good and the profits look good and, oh, this could be fun. It's because your psyche has connected to them for the purpose of moving towards greater wholeness. So you're absolutely right that this relates to all relationships. I'm glad you brought it up. I don't want to dilute, the elixir of this training and go into absolutely every single one, but you're absolutely right. I've seen it across the board. It is an archetypal phenomenon of all relationships. But where we really get it and train it is in the intimate sphere.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's okay. You can have both.
And
We just have to map.
mhm,
I'm the same. There are certain moments when
mhm,
I've been a little too yin, and there are certain moments where I'm a little too
mhm,
young.
mhm,
A really great relationship will work both those
mhm,
sides at different times in different scenarios, but they're not infinite. They're like, I mean, literally, you will have
mhm,
three trends at most. I don't even see four or five. I see two. So I see two really. It's
mhm,
like, where's the
mhm,
yin, where's the yang? So it's like, the simple answer is maybe when
mhm,
you give feedback, it's too young. So the apple is not sweet enough. Um,
mhm,
when something is happening and maybe it's not big enough or you're too tired, you don't have the resources or whatever, maybe you don't say enough. So maybe you're too yin. So maybe it's like a lot of people, what they do? They're too yin for a long period of time and then they explode and they're too yang. That's a
mhm.
very common trend.
Yeah. Mhm,
So you meet a man, you meet someone who you can feel there is something, there is an attraction. Now, what you're going to notice from the very first correspondence, quite frankly, certainly from the very first date, is what they are working with on their journey towards wholeness. They will be revealing this to you. And once again, at the highest level or the lowest common denominator of it, it'll be excessively yin in certain areas, excessively yang in others. You go on a first date with the guy, does he forget his wallet and you have to pay? Okay, so he's definitely got a recessive masculine that needs some help. Is he constantly interrupting you? Okay. He has a recessive masculine. If he's not paying the bill on the first time, or he's just like, oh, hold on, does that thing where it's like, oh, the bill comes, wait. That's a recessive masculine, right? So that's going to be right off the bat. I would just call that. And once again, when you have tracked patterns for as many years as I have, it's almost like you don't need a pattern. Technically a pattern is two or more, but when you really know patterns, when one comes along, you can be like, oh, that's a pattern. So you can trust these things. This is one of the biggest things. Don't rationalize the pattern away. This is going to relate to session two. Session two, we're going to go into the inner child. We're going to go into the intrapsychic. Because here, this is the mechanics of it. I'm going to show you the mechanics. You guys are going to get the mechanics very easily. The piece that is always the challenge for individuals is the inner child part, right? It's when the wound comes up and says, oh, I can't actually hold the line. This is the 5-year-old traumatized you. I can't hold the line because I'll be abandoned. That's the defensive traumatic adaptation where suddenly you become a 5-year-old and you're behaving in that way. And the 5-year-old, or the 6-year-old, behaves in a way that they had to adapt to the narcissistic, avoidant, or whatever parent in order to kind of keep themselves safe. But later in life, it doesn't keep us safe. It actually re-elicits the wound. It re-elicits the trauma. So there is going to be a moment where almost like a brinkmanship where you have to come up and you're being invited to do something and the mechanics are right. You've seen the pattern, the intervention is ready, but that inner child's going to have to be worked with. That's the piece that most people do not address. So session two, we're going to be really going into the inner child and showing you exactly what's happening with that, how they're going to get in the way, how are they going to try to grab the steering wheel of the relationship from you, from the queen, from the sovereign, and careen off the road. And that's the moment that you have to do that intrapsychic inner child work so that you de-blend from them and it can actually take the more, sovereign path that's going to actually make the relationship better. When you're on the first date, the second date, the third date, here's the thing. First of all, you're going to be seeing what I call deviations from the norm. Do they arrive late? Do they excessively apologize? Do they constantly interrupt? Are they constantly, hold on? Are they doing that thing? Are they doing that thing? They're going to show you everything, right? And you have to track that, not because you're cruel and sadistic and are trying to catch them out. You're tracking that because that's what they're coming to you for, right? The tagline for this whole training should be, men are not inherently respectful of women, let's say. Men do not just unconditionally love you and respect for you and care for you. They don't. What they care about, what they care for, what all of us truly care about is, can you see them? Can you see them clearly? And by clearly, we mean, can you see the hero's journey that they are on and the ways in which they are sabotaging that? If you can see that and you can deliver that to them, that is something they will protect. That is something you will suddenly become the harbinger and the high priestess of their soul, of their hero's journey. That they will give their lives to. But if you shirk that responsibility, or you do it casually or not at all, and think that your mere kindness, your expertise in the kitchen, your acumen in the bedroom is good enough, it just never will, because it's not important. It's not important. Some of those pieces are important, like especially in the beginning. And I mean, there has to be an attraction, but I guarantee you right now, the attraction is actually when the psyche's fit. So it has nothing. I've never seen beauty, power, wealth, influence have anything to do with long-term relationships. It doesn't. People think that. It has nothing to do with it. It has to do with your ability to see the hero's journey they are on and deliver it. Suddenly then you are something to them. So getting back to it, right? First couple of dates, you have to see, where are they deviating from the norm? Don't rationalize it. No, traffic was not bad. It doesn't matter that it's a Saturday night and everywhere is booked. It doesn't matter. They arrived late. Track it. Trust it. Ask relationships, for those who are in this initial phases, ask their relationship with their family. Because what you're really doing is saying, what are you bringing to me? And what are you working with? You have to know, hey, what's your relationship like to your mother? What's your relationship like to your father? Which is really just an encoded way of saying, what are we going to be working on? What are you going to be bringing to us? What are you going to be projecting onto me? Yeah, exactly. It is hilarious. If they have children, stepchildren, actual children from a previous marriage, ask about the ex-wife. Ask who you are going to become and who they're going to make you, right? And if we were in a really enlightened society, call her up. Hey, you're handing the baton to me. So tell me, where am I picking up from? It's all true. It's all real. It's all right. Previous partners should just get together. It's like, he graduated from you, perhaps, or perhaps failed and now is trying again. And vice versa, you with your previous relationships. So here's where it gets kind of interesting. What you're going to do now, you've seen some deviations from the norm with you. You've asked him questions about his family. Those rhyme and connect. Start connecting them. We'll get into more of that in a bit. You ask him about his career too, his life circumstances, right? Is he living out of a tent Is he in a tiny home? Has he got a mansion but he's estranged from his children? All of these things speak volumes, right? You've got his deviations from norms with you, his relationships to his family of origin, his life conditions. I want you to know that all of those connect. They all are he's doing the same thing with all of it. Excessive masculine in certain areas, recessive yin in other areas, recessive masculine in other areas. And once again, we can actually predict what you are all going to be experiencing because it's going to be the photographic negative of you. So where you are excessively masculine, he will likely be recessively feminine, right? Where you lack, he has. Where he has, you lack, right? Where you have wounds, he will trigger them. Where you are a little bit aberrant, you will be triggering his wounds. So I often say, kind of like a good architect, if you tell me how big your master bedroom is, I can tell you how big your kitchen is, and how big your spare bedroom is, and how big your living room is, right? That's how it works. So when we work with your psyche, we can tell what his is likely going to be, most definitely going to be. And then we can infer the process you guys are going to go through. And we're gonna go over this, right? You guys are gonna populate all of these elements with what you have experienced. We're gonna put it together. And so what happens is once you start to put this together, this is the serpent. Okay. When you see all the ways their shadow is playing out, and once again, I'm just going to keep repeating it, with you arriving late, doing the interruptions, not paying for dinner, or whatever it is, right? That's the serpent interpersonally with you. Then he tells you about his family. That serpent rhymes with the family. You're going to hear the same stories in different ways with his daughter, with his son, with his ex-wife, with his mother, with his father. They're all the same story, just with different individuals. It's the same serpent. Then his life conditions will reflect that with his boss, right? With his direct reports, with his financial status, with his emotional attunement. It's all just right there in front of you. And it's not complicated because they all rhyme. And it all relates to certain archetypes that he's in. Is he in the avoidant? Is he in the exile? Is he in the scapegoat? Is he in the abusive father, the devouring mother? The archetype is all there. And at the core, it's always going to be excessive yin, excessive yang, recessive yin, recessive yang. So if in doubt, always go back to that dynamic. Once you have understood that, and I am going to teach you how to connect all of those, right? And have that in your hand. That's his serpent. That's his serpent. Once you've understood that, that's what he's looking for. He's looking for a woman who can see that in him. He's looking for an Eve, but not just who can identify the serpent, but who can wrap it in an apple and deliver it to him sweetly and say to him, I see you. I see what you want. I see your pain. I see your hero's journey. I see the ways in which you are impeding it. And you have called me in to see that and to help you with that. And if you want to go on that journey, I'd be open to that. But you have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to see it. Do you see these things that I'm seeing? Do you want to explore them with me? That's like the first apple. If he says to you, I don't know what you're talking about, you're crazy. God, you're just like my ex-wife. What do you think you're going to do? You're going to left swipe. You're going to say, hey, this is okay. I mean, there it is. There's the indication. Fail cheap, fail quick. I know people, I know women, they waited 20 years to say this kind of stuff. 20 years of pain. Never brought it up. Always danced around it. Enabled the partner, enabled the pathology. Never connected it, just avoided it. Just like, oh, landmines. And what happens is you end up meeting people. They've been in marriages for 20 years. It's filled with landmines. You can hardly go anywhere. There's nowhere to move. There's certainly no growth. But what's happened is that the yin is responsible. This is what's, I think, revolutionary about this approach. The yin is responsible. Why? You guys know this at this point, because the yin is the one that is sensitive enough to see this stuff. Regardless of gender, the yin is the closest to spirit, to the snake, to the unconscious, to the shadow. The yin is responsible. The yang is further away. How's the yang gonna see it or change if the yin's not doing anything? It doesn't work. That's why Eve, the yin, delivered the apple to Adam and not vice versa. It is the responsibility of the yin. And if you are a yin woman, it is your responsibility. I'm going to say a couple more things about delivering the apple, and then we're going to open it up and we're going to get into the weeds with everyone. We're going to start delivering this, because what I'm going to invite you over the next couple of weeks is you're going to be delivering an intervention. Sorry, you're going to be composing an intervention and bringing it to us in your voice, in your way, with everything you need. That's your homework. You have to do this. If you're here, it's like Fight Club. You have to fight. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's still a great movie. I can't believe it's like 27 years old. My point is, you don't have to deliver it, but you have to share it with us. You have to lock and load it. Like, that is my requirement. And if you need help, I'm more than happy to help. But you've got to get this thing going. You've got to get the archetype rolling. That's where I'm really going to lean into this. I'm not just going to give you this information and like, bye, see you later. No. We're working you through this. We're ushering you through this, because I really want to hear from individuals who've done this on the other side and then come back and say, I did it. Wow. The catalytic process that like took place as a result of that. And you have to compose it like a magic spell. I say this all the time when I work with Marianne, you know this. In clinical alchemy, we talk about the intervention as a spell that shatters the complex. It breaks the complex. And a good spell, a good intervention, a good apple, it goes deep into the psyche, past the defenses. And the way that it does that is it's sweet. It's sweet, it's beautiful, it's elegant, it's feminine. You don't bring it like an old fish and slap them around the head with it. It doesn't work. It's got to be majestic and magical. It is a spell, right? You're not just casting a spell. You're composing one. That is the apple. And I'm going to tell you how to do it. So let's see if there's just a couple of little things I want to just note about this. The summary once again, and I'll give you the handout at the end so you've got it. You're connecting three things. Their aberrant behavior with you. You're not alone. You're not crazy. They're doing it everywhere in their life. That's why they've called you in to see it. You're connecting it to their family of origin and their traumas and their relationships with their mothers and fathers and maybe children if they have them. And you're making the connection between what they do to you and what happened with them. And then you're triply connecting it with their life conditions, their career, which is really important to a man, as we well know, right? Their financial status. And you will see, and I will help you to do this, you will see, it's all connected. When you connect that and you bring it to them lovingly, it will blow their minds. And that's the moment you become Eve. That's the moment they look at you, not just as someone fun to hang around with and, eat food with, watch Netflix. And, it's like they will look at you as a harbinger of their hero's journey. That's a whole different ballgame. That's completely different. You've postured yourself in the most empowering place you can actually stand in a relationship. That's what this is all about. And anything less than that is not posturing yourself in the most powerful place. And I would even argue that like either you're in the most powerful place or you're not. That might be too much because I'm sure everyone in relationships points things out. But when you're just pointing it out, especially let's just say with, in a traditional masculine, man, feminine, man, woman relationship, you could very easily fall into sadly and unfortunately, into the role of the nag. the fishwife, you know, and so we really don't want that. And that often happens the longer the relationship goes. So that's why early interventions are great. Early interventions. And once again, what we're doing is we're bringing that, and you're inviting a crossroads. The apple is delivered at the crotch of a crossroads, so to speak. Okay. And you're saying to them, like, you want to go on this journey, we go this way. If you don't, hey, it's wonderful, but I'm not really interested in repeating trauma, enabling trauma. I love you. You're so amazing. We have such good fun together. But it's really important to me to be in a growth oriented, like healing relationship, And of course, it doesn't really matter what they say. That's another thing. If you bring this to them, you will see it's like, if I had my way, and maybe it's not as simple as this, but the first kiss in an ideal world would come after the first apple. And if they receive it, you bring that first apple in the way that's right for you, poetic, beautiful, relaxed. You guys are just hanging out, watching the sunset, glass of wine, whatever it is. It's just like a lovely moment, right? And you're like, and you say, hey, I've got this sense that, as a man, you're looking for this. You're really looking for this journey over here, and you've shared it with me because you've shared this and this and this and this and all these things. They relate to this. They relate to this part of your healing and your empowerment, you know, and I can feel like there's something between us that could take this journey together, or would you be, are you interested in doing that and addressing some of these things? If he looks at you and he says, wow, God, yeah, you really got my number. Wow, that's very astute of you. Yeah, I would really, I'd be open to that. Yeah, I'd be open to that. The first kiss happens after that. That's the reward for both of you. That's the celebration after having crossed the first rite of passage. Just an acknowledgement of what you've seen, what you've understood, and that perhaps they're willing to take that journey with you. And of course, if he's like, look, traffic was really bad the other day. I mean, I think you're kind of being a little bit persnickety here. Like, I was 5 minutes late. What's the big deal? And like, I look at my phone a lot because like I'm trading, like I gotta make, I don't know. I just, you're sounding a little like my mom. And I just kind of like, like I'm like, I gotta work, I'm a man. I like to work. He don't get a kiss because he just failed. He just failed the test and it's all bullshit. Sorry, it just is. If you deliver it properly, right? Like if the whole thing is just like, if your apple is just like one of those California apples just like shining, it's like, and he just sniffs at it, then like that's an indication. And, if it was me, he doesn't get a kiss that night. He's just like, okay, cool. Hey. I mean, you could still go on a second date. You could still keep bringing it to him. Like you'll watch it. Like he'll be on his phone again. He'll arrive late again. Like that's the thing, right? I know this. I know this for a fact. I promise you can take this to the bank. It'll keep happening. You can do 2, 3 more dates with him. You'd be like, I don't know, you're still doing this thing, And I mean, like, I don't know. I'm not into enabling people with like certain things that I can already tell, like, are probably going to be something. And also for you, like, I think this is something that you're looking for. They still just don't get it. Yeah. Left swipe, stop. Like, don't engage. And what you're really doing at a deeper level when you do this, you're going to be changing the alignment you have to that archetypal field. I'm not going to say too much about this, right? Because it's too esoteric. But just trust me that having worked with individuals, I've worked with individuals, specifically women, but also men on this for years. 90% of the time when I show up, when I'm invited in, it's because they're rolling through a pattern of that. And I always say, another one's coming. We just wait. We just wait. I set them up in the way that I'm setting you guys up, and it's like another one's coming. The other one comes. We do the inner child work. We go through the process. If they re-engage and they move to intimacy and they eat dessert before they've climbed the mountain and it's a big disaster and it hurts, that encourages them to make sure they don't do that the next time. Then the next time comes along and they do it and they left swipe early and they avoid all that pain. The next individual who comes along is at a dramatically higher level, much more available. The more we stay in that pattern, the more the pattern persists. When we shift our alignment to it and we say no, the pattern upgrades. It's a little bit like, the universe is listening. But I always joke, God will say to you, did you really get the lesson? I'm going to throw you another curveball. And he's going to be like 10 times better and 10 times more handsome and way more of this and way more of that, but it's the same pattern. If you fall into it, you will embed in the pattern even further. If you can see it and left swipe from it, the next one will be dramatically better. And then usually either the one after that or that one will be the one that like actually sees them home. And I've successfully supported, like many women to move into healthy relationships with precisely this. This is why I'm finally bringing it, right? Because it's like, we got it. We got it. We know it. So the ground rules of all of this and what I describe as the thing that develops the relational tether. Now, write this down. There's a tether. Women are acutely aware of the relational tether. Usually men are way less aware of that. They have no idea what it is. When you are in a relationship with someone who's had that tether, the secure attachment tether, cut over and over and over again, it is a bit like an addiction. They will move towards it. That's what they know. And in fact, it's very scared to keep that tether solid and secure, right? The ground rule of healthy relationships is what I call the consistent reciprocity. Consistent reciprocity. And I say this with everyone now in kind of in my community. What it means is if I send you an email and there's nothing necessarily more to say, you say to me, can we meet on Tuesday at 9 a.m.? I send you back. I say, here's the Zoom link. We'll meet at Tuesday. You send me a thumbs up. Call and response, right? That has to be impeccable with you guys. Impeccable. That's the ground. So once again, you're going to have to determine, and we will kind of help you to determine how you bring this up, how you develop this, right? It's not necessarily what I'm capable of doing, like necessarily right now to cover every single detail of this, but I will give you the end game and where you need to move. Everything has to be reciprocal. What I've noticed in relationships, if you start to play with a slight lack of communicative, consistent reciprocity, like you sent me the Zoom link, I don't need to respond like I got it. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're slowly eroding the secure attachment. If you don't, it's very obvious when there needs to be a response. I'm all about that. Even just the thumbs up, the prayer hands, whatever it is. If you don't do that, you're inviting the fact that like, we can erode the tether a little bit. Don't erode the tether. Trust that like, it's unbelievable how this is completely not online with so many couples out there. I don't need to call you. No, call me when you arrive. Call me when you're leaving the house. Call me when you arrive. If I send you a text, like let's stay in contact. This is another thing, like, especially in the beginning of the relationship, like there's a certain moment, there's a tipping point. It sounds like you guys are already over the tipping point where you're kind of about to explore like this, consistent relationship, right? There needs to be a consistent interaction and there needs to be an establishment of that, because what you'll feel as a woman, and you feel this, I'm sure you can tell us, you will feel the safety and the security of the relationship rise. And then like suddenly on a long weekend, oh, I'm busy and he doesn't respond. And maybe you don't reach out and maybe you feel a little bit insecure that like, well, I don't want to bother him and this and that. And the whole safety and the relational tether suddenly just goes slack and it feels horrible. You don't develop secure attachment that way. And you have to actually kind of really have that conversation where it's like, this is not me or anyone else being clingy or cloying or annoying. It's got nothing to do with that. Like, if we are going to enter into something together, like anything, it just needs to be secure. If you're going to chop vegetables to create a dish, you should be doing it on a cutting board. Don't do it on the tile or the marble. You'll cut the marble. Don't do it on the floor. Don't do it in the bathroom. Do it on a cutting board. Same thing with the relationships, the archetypal norms. And so it's like when I work with someone therapeutically, I'll say to them, like, listen, you want to work secure attachment? It's every week, period. It's not me saying that, right? Like, if I want to enable a contaminative, ambivalent attachment therapeutic process or an ambivalent relationship, yeah, let's meet when we want. Call me up when you want. That's really going to help your secure attachment. No, it's not. It's going to completely reiterate your ambivalent, your avoidant, and your dysregulated, disorganized attachment pattern. Absolutely. So I'm starting to voice it now. I'm starting to realize that your journey of healing is all about secure attachment, right? Because your fate is to basically is to rupture for the rest of your life with everyone who you love. That's your fate. And you've called me in to embrace a destiny. That's the difference between fate and destiny. Fate is the pattern of trauma repeating. Your destiny is the redemptive journey. So what you've really shown me is your redemptive journey is secure attachment. And I need to hold that invitation to you. I need to say to you, for us to do that, there's certain cues, gestures, principles, and rules that actually we need to kind of put in place. Like, you can't go 5 days on your motorbike without reaching out to me. You can't. Like, that's not going to work. You can fall off the wagon every so often, come back, take accountability, reestablish the secure attachment pattern. We can work with that. Like, you don't have to be perfect, but you have to agree that we're doing this. Like, if you don't agree that we're doing this and we're just a little bit like, we're just playing around in avoidant and ambivalent and like, it's not going to work. Like, it's not going to go well. And I have, a protective mechanism over you, right? For that. Like, I want to protect you from that happening. So the idea is that what we're going to do, and you guys can start to feel how this starts to develop, is you're already seeing the pattern. That's the main one. Like, we don't need to scratch deeper, but for your purposes, I want to invite you. Okay. I want to invite you by next session. And this is the invitation that everyone's going, I want you to have a list of all of his previous, those 3 domains where this avoidant rupture wound takes place, where he's not feeling emotionally stable, emotionally connected, like in his life, where he's a soldier soldiering on. So I want you to get as much information as possible so that when you're talking this through, you're not just some woman, the stereotypical woman who knows the truth but hasn't got evidence and is using her intuition that just gets slammed down by every man in history, right? Like, we want you to scientifically have all your evidence like rounded up in all 3 major domains of his life. Then you're delivering to him like, I'm doing this not just for us as a couple. I'm doing this for me out of self-respect. I'm doing this for you because I care about you so much. I wouldn't want to enable your wound. Why would I want to enable your wound to happen again? Like, I have enough self-respect that I'm going to hold my standard for how I'd like to be treated. I'm going to hold up the torch for your healing because I know that if I don't, I'm just enabling the worst. I'm enabling your complex, your pattern, your trauma to continue. And I'm holding the relationship in the kind of container that it needs to be held in. Which, me, as someone who understands emotional regulation, emotional security, I'm the one who has to lead us on this one. Like, you can't lead us. Like, with all due respect, you could lead us in other areas. You can't lead us in this one. Like, the responsibility is on my shoulders. Like, I know what secure attachment is. You see where I'm going? You see, so that's starting to sound like an apple. You're the apple with the serpent inside, and you're bringing it to him and saying, come on this journey with me. Mm-hmm. And he has to be willing to do that. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is, according to how he behaves, we can talk about all the details, but according to how he behaves is like, you might come to a brinkmanship moment, right? Because This is what I've seen in all relationships. Sadly, most stereotypical men, they'll get away with what you let them get away with. The complex, I should even say, it's not really about men, it's men and women, it's both sides. The complex will it will try to get away with what you let it get away with. Now, I'm not strict on this. Like, once again, I've been through a 25-year marriage. I've done it on both sides. I've done it with, dozens of clients at this point. We want to be a little bit, we want to have some give and take, right? People are allowed to fail. It's an ongoing conversation, this kind of stuff, especially when you start to really embrace this transformational healing juncture of the relationship. But once you put that framework down, I won't say it's like 3 strikes and they're out, but it's like, I don't know, 5 strikes, 10 strikes.
Mhm.
What I have seen is there might come a moment, I'm not saying this will happen with you, but there might come a moment where you start to realize, oh, wait a minute. No, yeah, like they're going to call my bluff. They're going to call my bluff. They think I'm willing to lower my standard.